Far Cry has always been the series I received as a freebie when buying a new GPU, but with new computer hardware becoming as sought after as a purpose to keep on living in this modern world, I found myself actually paying for it, and my expectations for what's inside a game change when money is involved. If games were required by law to come with nutritional information like the food you buy, it would certainly clarify what a bunch of empty calories Far Cry 6 is. All of the things I was somewhat indifferent to in the past Far Cry games piled up into a showcase of stagnation, that by the end of the experience, Far Cry 6 was so bad I'm not even going to write it off of my taxes. I want no official record of having paid for it. Ubisoft open world games should be approached cautiously, like the vomit on the supermarket floor guarded by staff until they pour the pink sand over it. To call them bloated is an understatement. You know how you play with a calculator and enter an absurd multiplication problem with more decimal places than the screen has room for? That's what Ubisoft does with their games. Along with the bloat, we have what feels like a series developed through Pavlovian response conditioning. Each time a new and small feature receives even a whiff of positive feedback, Ubisoft keeps it around for every subsequent game even if it serves little purpose since the gameplay has moved beyond it, stacking it up on top of other unused systems from previous games. The only time they've cut out anything is when they were endlessly mocked for radio towers, and even then Ubisoft still tries to sneak one or two in there. Far Cry 3 was the series' peaks in terms of mechanics and has since struggled to find anything worthwhile to add to the formula. After all, Ubisoft only innovates when they are forced to, so I would recommend that it's time for a series reboot, but this is Ubisoft we're talking about. They would only use that opportunity to turn it into a live service game, which Far Cry 6 already feels dangerously close to, but the series hasn't reached that terminal stage just yet. I'd rather see a return to casual racism than go down that route, and as we've learned, if you make fun of Ubisoft enough you can actually change things for the better. So I'll have to change my critical tone a bit to get through, like an abusive boyfriend gaslighting his lover. Bitch, why do you make me hurt you? In a pointless effort to offend no one's political leanings, Ubisoft created a revolution less interesting than watching two ant farms fight each other. Far Cry 6 is set on an island in the Caribbean named Yara. It's heavily inspired by Cuba, with a revolution in the 60s beginning a 50-year blockade by the US, resulting in the country being stuck in the 1960s technology-wise, except everyone carries smartphones, Fitbits, and other modern technology. It seems that only the cars are old, so it can't be a very effective blockade. They really only transplanted the culture and the aesthetic while leaving out the politics, namely communism. Can't have gamers taking on a socialist regime now, can we? What would the media articles say? So the villains have no real ideology other than be tyrannical and see how that works out. And the resistance is equally bland, with no real vision for Yara other than repeating the word freedom as they go about destroying the country's infrastructure, so they will have no ability to support the people after they topple the regime. I would give you a spoiler warning for Far Cry 5's ending, but it seems as if that's been brushed under the rug, along with Far Cry New Dawn, which was set after the events of a worldwide nuclear holocaust. I didn't even know you could do that. Just ignore a major series event. Then again, this isn't the first time Far Cry forgot about a game in the series. Far Cry 1 and 2 keep sending texts that Ubisoft ignores.
A road to paradise. Viviro, created by our own brilliant scientists. The most effective treatment for cancer the world has ever seen. Grown within our precious tobacco. Modified with the purest fertilizer, Viviro is the key to rebuild paradise.
Castillo's plans for Yara revolve around monopolizing the anti-cancer treatment, Viviro, created from locally grown tobacco. I think the irony of tobacco being an anti-cancer agent is purposely on the nose. But how are you going to monopolize something that can be grown anywhere? All they do is spray a chemical on the tobacco to produce the drug, which can and would be copied into generic versions. And as it turns out, the chemical they spray on the tobacco is also a chemical weapon that kills people. So we have an anti-cancer drug created from the combination of a carcinogen and a chemical weapon. And I don't believe that chemical weapon part is joining the nose in irony.
Enough politics, Lita.
You think the draft is only taking true Yarans? It's the outcasts, the poor, orphans like us.
Thankfully, Danny's parents are already dead before the game begins since Danny and her friends are orphans. However, you can measure her friends' lifespan in minutes before they become character motivation. You can play as either male or female. This was okay when the main character was a mute like in Far Cry 5, since it's just a stand-in for yourself. But Far Cry 6 not only gives Danny more of a personality, but has also made the switch to third-person cutscenes. When you get cinematic with your presentation, my preference is always to know all the traits that define the character I'm playing as, and when you can't pin down the sex of your main character, you have to write them in a more generic fashion that can fit both eventualities rather than include the strengths and weaknesses of a particular gender to guide that character's personality.
Hey, time to go. Boss waiting. Drinks in Mexico.
Dinner in Miami.
Danny and her friend are planning to escape the country to America, where they will presumably begin a new life of voting Republican, when the Yaran military launches a raid on its own capital city to enforce the worker draft. But they just seem to be killing everyone they come across because they're thick. That's one friend down that we will see again during a drug-induced flashback, no doubt. This is the first Far Cry game to include a city, Esperanza, as part of its open world map. It's used 3 times during the entire game, and the second time you come here, the streets are completely empty of any pedestrians or cars because making their city feel lived in wasn't a priority. Most of the game is spent in the familiar territory of military checkpoints, bases, villages, and the forests and roads in between. Villains are always introduced feet first.
Before he was El Presidente, mi papa loved to fish. We would go out on a boat, just like this, and we would catch the fish and then release them.
Far Cry 3 was memorable for its antagonists, so Ubisoft has been keen to make sure every Far Cry game comes with a charismatic villain. Being a charismatic villain in Far Cry boils down to giving long, rambling speeches to people you are planning to kill right afterward. Ubisoft has even convinced itself that Far Cry is known for its villains so much that Far Cry 6 will be getting DLC episodes that allow you to play as them. Let's be clear about something. Far Cry is known for one villain, Voss, and he wasn't even the main villain in Far Cry 3. Hoyt was, and all the villains they've made since have been closer to Hoyt than Voss. I don't think I would even classify Anton Castillo as charismatic. He's well acted, but unlike previous villains, there's a large disconnect between him and Danny. He's only concerned with his son and doesn't give a rat's ass about you until the end of the game. He comes across as a parenting coach for fascist parents, something a lot of us have experience with already. Despite being locked in the hold of a sinking fishing boat, Danny somehow survives and gets free off-screen, always a sign that the developers wrote themselves into a corner. Washing up on a beach is the only survivor, and is also a stone's throw away from the Resistance headquarters. Lita was shot while the boat was sinking, yet she somehow survived long enough to get out of the locked cargo hold of a sinking boat, wash up on the shore and tell Danny about Libertad before dying.
Don't you get it? You're the lucky one, Danny.
And there goes friend number 2. I'll see you in an upcoming mission where you berate Danny for her failures while she's high as a kite. As it turns out, all of Libertad carry easily traceable smartphones. While playing Far Cry 6, my mind kept telling me something was off, but I didn't figure out what it was until halfway through the game. You see, unlike previous Far Cry games, you can't loot weapons from dead enemies. You can only find them in chests or buy them at a store. Stores run inside the rebel camps that for some reason need me to finance my own weapons as I fight a guerrilla war for them. Now you have to select weapons before you ever leave camp, and with only 4 slots available, it quickly gets annoying, especially since ammo types need to be considered. Certain enemies are only vulnerable to certain ammo. It became such a hassle to deal with that I quickly narrowed it down to the most optimal weapon and stuck with it for the rest of the game. A suppressed rifle. I played through Far Cry 6 like it was a new Sniper Elite game, only without the bullet camera detailing a man's testicles being shot off, which if you're listening Ubisoft would be a brilliant addition to Far Cry 7 if you're going to leave your gunplay so unsatisfying that I go out of my way to avoid it by sniping every man, woman, and mountain lion from the very edge of the render distance. I can't see this as anything other than a failure for a game that marketed itself with crazy weapons that fire annoying 90s music on compact discs. Every mission played out the same for me. Find a vantage point, scan the base with my phone to mark everyone, then shoot out the alarms and any soldier who can call for backup before picking off the remainder who are now helpless.
Gonna show your face before you shoot me?
Danny's one weakness in this game is people getting the drop on her during cutscenes. This is a running tradition in Far Cry games, but I don't think it's a tradition Ubisoft is conscious of. They just suck at writing.
Now I need to call in some favors with the locals to get us a boat, and you need to go find me Juan Cortez.
Who?
Someone who can make one guerrilla fight like 1,000.
The new person who expressed a desire to leave the country instead of fighting normally wouldn't be given important tasks, like enlisting a legendary guerrilla fighter who just happens to be on this island.
Keep your gun holstered if you want to stay out of trouble, especially in areas with a lot of soldados.
Keeping your gun holstered will keep enemies from aggroing on you a bit longer. Apparently they miss the rocket-launching backpack Danny wears at all times once she locates Juan Cortez and builds it. The only reason to read your own book is to get across to the player that Juan Cortez is the wacky, violent character of Far Cry 6. Far Cry has this belief that violent people come in 2 flavors, charismatic yet coldly sadistic. This would be your villains, along with wacky and downright comical. Personally, I don't see much distinction between the person taking a machete to my taint and following it up with a D's nuts joke, and a person who tries to kill me while telling me we're so much alike. But because your allies are so jovial while they kill, you're not supposed to think ill of them for it. Cortez can build various Supremo backpacks and special resolver weapons for Denny. When it comes to the backpacks, I found none of the offensive ones to be of any use. I just stood there going through the animation while the soldiers took turns seeing who could empty their magazine into me first. So do yourself a favor and build the medic backpack the first chance you get, since it revives you when you die. As for the Supremo weapons, the only one I ever made use of was a firework launcher, which was capable of shooting down attack helicopters and destroying tanks, which makes Europeans taking the Chinese invention of black powder to make firearms and cannons look foolish if fireworks were already capable of destroying modern military vehicles. To top it all off, the backpacks and Supremo weapons can only be made using depleted uranium you acquire from raiding anti-air installations. I'm not sure why you would need depleted uranium to build a canister that shoots fireworks or build a backpack that sprays antiseptic, but busy work is the currency in Far Cry. Rewards only come once you waste the required amount of time.
First, you take this parachute. Trust me, it can save your life.
I have to question why anyone would think a person needs a parachute when that person is firmly planted on the ground, but then I recall that's because Far Cry parachutes don't function like those in reality, which are only usable if there's enough distance from the ground and you're falling with enough speed to open it.
Looks like a rocket launcher.
To me, it looks like the rocket exhaust would set your head on fire the first time you use it.
Its real name is PG-240, but we call it the poison because it fucks up your system. Try not to breathe it or get it on your skin. It can make you go fucking crazy or sick, like deep down sick. And if that doesn't get you, the cancer that grows into...
According to Julio, the chemical that is sprayed on the tobacco also causes cancer if you breathe it. After seeing the doubt people have over vaccines, I think you might have a hard time convincing people to trust a cancer treatment when both of its main ingredients cause cancer. Danny's next mission has her taking a flamethrower to a crop of tobacco while music plays in the background, which I would send for being a Control-C, Control-V of a mission found in Far Cry 3, but that's the entire franchise. The final mission of Tutorial Island has Dani and Libertad attacking two of Castillo's warships blockading the small island, and instead of capturing the ships for their own use after they board them, they scuttle them instead.
What are you going to do if you win, Presidente Garcia?
The next president won't last 6 months before they are assassinated.
Wait, what?
It's the truth.
Won't free election solve that? What happened to your list?
It's a vision, Dani. But I'm not as naive as you think. This revolution will free Yara, but won't fix it. When we take the capital, Yara will be burning. It'll be civil war, factions, warlords, born-backed coups. Take your pick.
Yarans will be killing Yarans for a generation.
Uh-huh. This fight will take the rest of my life.
I respect that the game is pragmatic over the direction violent revolutions tend to go. It's just that Far Cry 2, 3, and 4 already covered that ground and did it better since the tone of the game was omnipresent throughout. You were either blackpilled into believing the fight was pointless and wouldn't make anything better, or discovered that the people you were working with were just as horrible as the person they opposed.
Fake Yarans love to be the outcasts. They are addicted to their selfish perversions. Chaos, lies, like wild dogs. But dogs can be broken. They can serve paradise. And if a dog refuses to break, like Julio here, like Clara Garcia, like Libertad, then we must put them down.
Giancarlo is wasted in my opinion. Beware games with celebrities in them. The people in charge seem to believe they are a direct selling point, and they always tend to half-ass what we actually care about. Hold on, Castillo knows which phones belong to Libertad and can send a photo of Julio's corpse to them in order to mock them? Why not track that phone and find their location?
I keep my promises, Dani. You wanted a boat, you got a boat.
It's a beautiful piece of shit, but it'll get you to a Yankee beach.
Ever since Far Cry 4 had a secret ending for those who did as they were told and waited at the dinner table for pagan men to come back, Ubisoft has made sure to keep it around for every game afterward. The reason people liked it in Far Cry 4 is because they weren't expecting it, and it even pointed out that people who do what dictators tell them to do have an easier time of it. Now everyone expects it and the game even points it out to you so you don't miss it. If you get in the boat and sail away, you receive a scene of Dani on a beach as she listens to a news report covering Libertad being executed, implying that it's your fault for leaving them. It feels like the game is leaving Dani's reasons for staying to fight a civil war, the leader of which just finished telling her it would take the rest of her natural life to finish, up to you. Because the game gives you a chance to leave but no reason to stay.
But most important, we have to surround Esperanza and trap Castillo in his cage. That means targeted operations that will unite the revolution and make Libertad stronger. To do that, I need you to recruit 3 groups in Yara to fight with Libertad.
You can stop right there. I already know how this is going to go, because it's the same version of the goal I had to fulfill in Assassin's Creed Valhalla. The game will make a big deal out of getting the allegiance of these 3 other groups in order to retake the country. But the final battle we're building toward will amount to cameos of the key NPCs Dani meets throughout the game, showing up during it and getting a line of dialogue. This is exactly how the last few Ubisoft open world games have played out. Assassin's Creed, Watch Dogs, even that Gods and Monsters game I didn't bother with.
And you come here for a second. Can you just come here? And you hold that down for me. That's a dead man switch. One move.
You were building your dead man switch while it was connected to an actual bomb? And why risk that? Did you know you needed to make an impression in your introduction cutscene? Also, unless Philly has the bomb inside the oil drum that serves as his desk, I don't see any explosives.
So you're Clara's hero, eh?
I'm no hero.
It's more than likely that explosion would have injured or killed Dani, and if I know dogs, Chorizo would have bolted at the sound of that explosion as well. Have you noticed that every character is introduced just like they're in Borderlands? Because I sure as hell have. This section of the game focuses on the slave labor being used to grow the tobacco for the cancer treatment. Agriculture has come a long way over the past 200 years. It's almost completely automated these days, so why would you need slaves to handle tobacco crops? In camps, the camera switches to third-person mode for no conceivable reason until you leave. It feels like a last-minute change, because Dani's mouth doesn't even animate when she answers a call in third person. Guerrilla camps can be upgraded with new buildings, just like the village in Assassin's Creed Valhalla. But unlike that game where you were setting up a colony, it doesn't make much sense that Dani has to build food stalls and other pointless shacks for an armed resistance group. She's there to take care of all their increasingly violent tasks, not build them a damn daycare center. When thinking about our global animal problem, I came to the conclusion that the best way to deal with it is to make them fight for our amusement. Cockfighting is the only thing in this game that I liked. It also plays into the only mission I enjoyed, where I tracked down a spur thief to a bunker where he was breeding mutant roosters that attacked me.
No password, idiota.
I'm torn. On one hand, I would send this for Espada easily getting through the password if he kept it written down in his office, but I also have to send it for Jose not using a password at all. And when looking at the monitor, I can clearly see a login screen with a password prompt. After killing an entire base just to get to him, Espada just lets her brother, who has switched sides at work with the regime, leave.
The depot where they store the poison. Burn it to the ground. The dusters that spray the tobacco. Rip them apart. The fumigators in the fields.
It bears mentioning that we, as the good guys, are trying to destroy the most effective cancer treatment in the world, and no one ever addresses this little fact. Rescuing Miguel from prison as a favor for Carlos is the moment when I was forced to start paying attention to the AI. You don't want me paying attention to the AI because I'm a pissy bastard with unrealistic standards, but Far Cry 6 may have some of the most abysmal enemy and friendly AI I've come across in a while. Just getting Miguel to walk through a door to freedom was hard enough. Thankfully, you only have to worry about mission critical friendlies a few times. It's the enemy AI that left me feeling like I was up against well-trained parrots playing the game with mobile controls. I already mentioned that you can clear entire bases from a distance with a suppressed rifle, but even when the game forces you to get close, enemies will walk right past you in a room they know you were in only to get shot in the head and add another layer to the corpses littering the floor. Philly had Danny raid a military base and steal a truck full of crates just so we could get the packing peanuts inside it. There has to be an easier source of packing foam to make napalm than that.
The church got a bell tower. You can see everything from there.
Stay the night in the tower before the execution. Don't want anyone seeing you get up there.
Got just the thing for you, hero. Philly rifle with a high-power scope. I'll plant the gun.
If Miguel is going to volunteer to sneak into the bell tower and plant a sniper rifle, why not just stay there and be the sniper for the mission? The gist of this mission is that Carlos wanted to rescue a group of outcasts who were going to be executed by Jose in the town square, and assassinate Jose at the same time. Only the first person to be hanged is his son, Alejandro, but Miguel betrayed the guerrillas. The sniper rifle he placed in the tower didn't work, and Carlos' son had a bomb tied to his hands. So not only did they figure Carlos would ride in and grab him, they were so confident they added a timer, giving Carlos enough time to remove the bomb. But instead of throwing the bomb, threw his son off the horse and rode away with the bomb until it detonated. During a far too long escape sequence where the soldiers barely even tried to chase me, the game glitched while loading a cutscene, and upon restarting I found myself in the middle of the chase mission but no longer in the truck and with no one chasing me, forcing me to hoof it all the way back to base where the cutscene triggered to end it. This glitch came close to soft locking my game and forcing me to restart, which would have meant this video would have never happened. There's no DC to AC converter on that car battery Philly uses as a defibrillator on Alejandro. Thanks to the information the soldiers who deserted from Castillo over the martyring of her father shared with her, Espada knows which 3 soldiers were responsible for the killing of her father, but her father was killed by a bomb tied to his son. I think it's hard to finger 3 people as being directly responsible. It doesn't take 3 people to strap a bomb to a guy. The one most responsible was Miguel, who Espada already killed. This is the first mission I encountered where Danny is tasked with hacking a computer and wait for the download to finish while soldiers file into the room one by one and are easily killed as they try to stop the download. Also, not a single military computer in this game is password secured. Clara contacts Danny and tells her to meet them at the capital to attempt an assassination on Castillo. The plan is to set bombs that are clearly marked as bombs at key points in the city that will act as a diversion, pulling all of Castillo's men away from the hotel where he is addressing the nation. Then Danny will infiltrate the hotel and fight off all the security inside single-handedly and kill him. Minus the second part, which sounds suicidal, I suppose is a serviceable enough plan, except Ubisoft didn't even put in the effort to sell the visual. Cortez triggers the explosives from a rooftop adjacent from the hotel, and I don't even see a single soldier leave the area to investigate those explosions. But then again, I don't even see soldiers outside the building guarding it.
Hey Danny, my papa is sick. That's why he's not here.
Turns out Castillo isn't at the hotel because he's sick and the live speech is a recording, but he still sent his son to the hotel to apparently wait around for the tape to stop playing because somebody needs to hit the eject button. The health status of the nation's tyrannical ruler is a pretty big deal and would be a major propaganda victory, but none of this information matters much to Danny or Libertad, and she doesn't even bother taking his son with her, who would be an incredibly high-value hostage. Let's just put that baseball pitching machine right in my pocket.
I'm the hope of the West, only one.
So you've flown this?
No, never. I'm afraid of heights.
If you haven't flown it, how did you adjust the bomb sights and the launcher you made from the pitching machine? It's pretty hard for a helicopter to sneak up on you, especially on an airfield while you're inside the traffic control tower, but Jose does just that. Cool girls don't look at explosions either. Is there a reason to burn the church where Jose's funeral service is taking place? With Jose dead and the Monteros on Libertad's side, I started work enlisting Maximus Matanza, a protest rap group where a base in a marsh turned into a dance party. It's little surprise that once I arrived at their base, it's been raided by the military and everyone is captured. All the bright lights and music didn't help much to keep it hidden.
I'm Bicho, man!
I'm from Mexico.
Ubisoft is still having issues recording different lines that correspond with whichever gender you select.
Papa was a drill instructor. Family's 5th Gen Army until me.
What happened?
Expelled? When Papa found out I turned from his favorite daughter into a freak. His words.
Shit.
Just trans in the military, compay.
The Yarn military seem to have some confused priorities. I've killed just as many female soldiers as male, but a trans soldier was kicked out of the academy.
And have to take a big fucking debt to get her out.
From who?
Bembe, black market smuggler. Once he's paid off, Talia and I are off this fucking rock.
I don't think the debt of an illegal smuggler is going to follow you to America. You could leave right now without paying and easily get away with it. Bimby pushes Danny into a confessional booth at the church for a meet and greet, where they basically have a cock measuring contest. Afterward, Bimby seems impressed enough to do business with Danny, then disappears from the booth and makes a phone call to a number he was never given to continue the conversation he could have just had in the confessional booth.
That money will now flow to me. We are done here, but you and I still have business to do, Rojas. You've paid off some of Paolo's debt, but not all.
I can't imagine that Paolo's debt was somehow greater than the amount of money Bimbe will now make from controlling a Russian smuggling operation.
You do beautiful work, Rojas. I'm sure our friends here will be very appreciative. Momento, amigos. This isn't your stop.
¿Qué coño? They're not going?
Business expense.
Bimby tasks Danny with rescuing outcasts and delivering them to a boat for transport, except not all of them. To help pay off a man's debt, the game has me partake in human slave trafficking. Bicho asks Danny to plant propaganda leaflet bombs and garbage cans throughout a town square, where they go off with no one but soldiers there to see them. He also has Danny paint over billboards of Maria Marquesa, the chief propagandist of the regime, and hang a huge banner that he never actually gave to Danny and would take more than one person to hang from a construction crane.
We just need to borrow your phones and your cameras.
It's a live stream of the event. Grabbing the phones and cameras of the reporters will do nothing.
Who's paying us for the viviro, Juan?
Before we slit Castillo's throat, we should ask for more flavors.
It's the Yankees.
Worse. CIA.
If you're only customer for smuggled Vivaro drugs of the CIA, why does Danny need to deliver drugs to multiple drop points along the coast? Just let them pick them up from one location. Far Cry 6 continues the lazy tradition of putting the hero into the villain's hands by knocking them out when entering through a door. Castillo has Danny tortured for information on Libertad, but all the torture is to her mouth, pulling teeth and burning her tongue with a cigar, which might impair her ability to speak. It doesn't, of course. She talks just fine despite a third-degree burn to her tongue.
I've done everything you have asked. I will be El Presidente. Let Danny go.
I am not a monster, Diego. We will give them a chance.
I think Diego might hear that grenade go off right behind him, and piece together that you lied about letting Danny go. Somehow that grenade sets concrete floors ablaze, and the fire is even spread beyond the cell Danny was in before she had a chance to leave it. The only way a fire could spread this fast is if fuel is soaking every square inch of the place. And goddamn it, this isn't another duplicate of something that went down in Far Cry 3.
Some footage could change a lot of minds.
Fuck yes, Danny! Broadcasting footage!
Sure, make another excuse to have me stand next to a computer while a progress bar fills up and a pile of bodies grows knee-deep in front of it.
Marquesa locked down the internet, so we're taking over the radio to give Libertad a voice. But Yara's old-ass network is cock-blocking me. It's from 1993? The red antenna tower things around here shoot out the signals, but most of them are broken.
Fixing radio hardware so revolutionaries can broadcast guerrilla radio makes perfect sense, but it's still a mission in a Far Cry game where you have to climb a radio tower. That bridge is long burnt. Danny has to first clear a mansion of soldiers so Maximus Matanza can livestream a rap concert ER from Maria's own home. And while this is going on, soldiers will attack to shut it down. But instead of simply shooting the performers on the stage, they suicidally go after the stage controls. This military would send in special forces to turn off the stove instead of cutting the gas.
Oh, so now you're against Libertad? After all the shit we've been through, the surgeries, your family?
My surgeries! My family, not yours! This isn't my war! When this is over, I'm still gonna have to fight to live here. It's like you forget that I'm trans.
No, I'm afraid I haven't. The game has been very explicit in bringing attention to that. It was the first thing we learned about you. Then we had to rescue the doctor that performed your top surgery. Ubisoft is keen on checking that box and showing their work.
Let's talk Viviro, a cancer treatment that extends the lives of millions around the world, except in the United States. My own father is stage 4. Why do you make Americans wait?
It's very American to expect what does not belong to you.
You refuse diplomatic overtures, even promises to lift the blockade.
I am sorry about your father, but Americans will wait.
I get that you have some poorly explained vendetta against the US, but a smart leader would realize that you stand to make a ton of money selling your cancer treatment to the world's biggest healthcare market.
They called for the liberation of so-called outcasts from Viviro labor camps. Is Viviro produced with slave labor?
Truth or lies?
The truth, of course.
Yara did not write the playbook. Slavery was your first corporation, 1800 to 1860. Cotton was your #1 export. Grown by whom?
Just a second.
Slaves.
You don't admit to using slave labor and justify it by claiming other countries in the past also use slaves. There's been over 2 centuries of laws passed across the world outlawing the practice. All of those modern countries would now be very unlikely to buy your cancer treatment after admitting that it's produced with slave labor. Cancer treatments are not as strong of export as, say, cobalt for electronics, since not everyone gets cancer and there are plenty of other therapies for countering it. And people tend to care more about how something is produced if it's going inside their body than a t-shirt made in a sweatshop that they wear. Time for more padding missions as Danny is sent to look for more billboards and trucks to destroy. The very next mission even makes fun of how boring this is. If you are so aware that your mission objectives suck that you make fun of them in this mission where you were in a drunken stupor, maybe don't keep adding crappy mission objectives.
When Lita died, she called me the lucky one. Like an idiot, I thought. Still just a number, Danny. A nobody. But I wasn't listening. She knew I still had a chance to be who I wanted to be. She was telling me not to waste it. To act. People see what they want to see. I am not a number. I am not a fucking gun. I'm a guerilla.
Ever consider a career in motivational speaking? I already feel better about my life after listening to you talk about your boring self. I can't tell you anything about Danny's character except for the things she said she isn't. Talia live-streamed herself performing a rap concert from the top of Maria's mansion just the other night. And now she's going to sneak into Maria's press event and no one there will recognize her. Danny and Talia wear disguises, but Danny's face is still covered in filth.
Would anyone like to spray the plants? Come, press this button. It is so much fun.
With PG-240 being a chemical weapon that kills people and causes cancer itself, spraying tobacco plants in a live demonstration for the press inside a greenhouse is not the brightest idea.
I'm just a scientist.
Bitches, leave!
Dr. Reyes is the doctor in charge of creating Viviro, making him very important to the regime, and Danny and Talia just let him go instead of taking a high-value prisoner when they had the chance. It didn't even cross their mind. It took quite a while for the news of Maria's death to reach Castillo despite it being broadcast live. While trying to rescue trans character Paolo, who am I to deny the game the accolades it desires? Danny runs through a door and falls victim to her blind spot again, as she is injected by the doctor from earlier.
That's 0.5 cc's of PG-240, what you call the poison. It's being pumped into your bloodstream. Doctor's orders. All I have to do is call.
Dr. Reyes cuts her stomach open and plants a smartphone connected to a device that will inject PG-240 into her whenever he calls it. There's so many questions I have that begin with why. Why go through the trouble of setting this up by kidnapping Paolo? Why not just give Danny a lethal dose of the chemical right now in a needle? Why test the chemical on her when you have countless human test subjects already? And why let her go instead of keeping her in a place you could observe her? This is clearly someone being evil for the camera when there are far more efficient ways of going about this.
Oh God, he put something in me! Matias! Fucking go!
Oh, okay, we meet there.
Believe it or not, this moment gets dumber. The doctor leaves and Talia shows up to free Danny and trans character Paolo, only for a soldier to show up and shoot Talia in the neck. With both Danny and now Talia needing emergency medical care, they split up and head to the same goddamn clinic. Danny is hallucinating the dead and can barely walk, and Paolo expects her to drive herself.
You don't give a fuck about Libertad or Castillo. You just like shooting guns.
Lita! No! This isn't real!
Don't you get it? I never should have been on that boat, Danny. You put me there.
Hallucinations will always tell you how much you suck. I have suspected that maybe Ubisoft had finally done away with a mission where the main character is roofied by a villain, but lo and behold you come across it like finding your grandparents' dentures left out in the bathroom sink overnight.
Danny, what are you doing?
You didn't have to make an entirely new incision to get the phone out of you. You could have used the one Dr. Reyes made earlier. After being poisoned and cutting her own stomach open with a kitchen knife, Danny is ready to go back to fighting a guerrilla war the next day.
A little rat, a pest, a parasite. Yes, you take and give nothing back.
Bicho, don't listen to him.
That's right, Bicho, just a blood-sucking bug.
Yeah, that'll show him.
Talia has an infection and we're low on medication.
I'm sure Castillo has some to spare.
Kind of odd that Talia develops an infection while Danny didn't, even though she cut her stomach open with a kitchen knife.
Maria's dead. Viviro is our new target. El Doctor is the key to fuck up Castillo's money machine. And
if you knew this information about Dr. Reyes, why didn't you capture him back when you had the chance?
Not one for debate, are we?
Did you know exposure to concentrated doses of PG-240 wreaks havoc on the body?
Dr. Reyes traps Danny in a room and pumps in PG-240 to kill her, even though that didn't work out so well the last time. But the room he uses for gas experiments has an air conditioning vent leading into the room he was standing in, which strikes me as a pretty large design flaw for a room meant to gas people. Danny constantly loses health and hallucinates as this area is being pumped full of gas, but Dr. Reyes is in this room with her and doesn't seem to be affected by it. There's no scar or bandage on Talia's neck from the bullet wound she received a day ago.
It rings every hour, señor presidente.
Hola, fascista.
Why would you actually go through with delivering a smartphone from the guerrillas to the president so they can mock him? The next act of the game is where I started beating my head against a wall because Far Cry 6 uses level scaling on enemies, so bullets would plink off my targets while they could kill me with a sideways glance. This is done to force you into the side content to level up, though I don't even know what I'm leveling. It's not like you have RPG stats, so it's more like you're doing side quests to lower the difficulty setting. Did you escape from a Fortnite match? A grenade is a huge waste of resources to kill an injured soldier you could have just shot, not to mention the shrapnel could have hit you at this distance.
I'm with La Moral.
La Moral. Terroristas.
Honron, this is Lorenzo. I know who he is. I think the word he's looking for is guerrilla.
You're not guerrillas. You're a street gang.
At least we're not hiding on the mountain while the world goes to shit.
I had enough of the cringe in the last area, but here the plot focuses on bridging the divide among Zoomer and Boomer guerrillas.
Admiral Benitez walked into my classroom with a gun. She called on your name, you came to the front. One by one. Alvarez. Bermudez. Carrillo.
Has anyone bothered telling Yelena that bullets ricochet and this is a tightly packed room? I don't care if she was counting the bullets. The moment you place a gun to your head and pull a trigger, I'm voting for a different leader.
I've always taken a personal interest in your career. Handpicked you out of the academy. But make no mistake, there were more experienced, more qualified, and more intelligent officers in line before you. You stood out for one simple reason.
Sí, señor presidente.
You were a woman in uniform.
That's incredibly progressive policy for a fascist regime, but half the soldiers I've killed in this game have been women. I don't see why the Admiral was a standout because of that. You were just holding a news interview in your office, and outside your window the soldiers are committing war crimes in clear view. El Tigre has Danny retrieve his old tank from a museum for a later assault. Military vehicles that are put on display are made unusable by removing the engines. At the very least, they're not armed with shells and napalm like this tank is. Inside Admiral Benitez's island fortress, Danny is trapped in a room where more poison gas is pumped in. It doesn't have quite the same effect on her that it did when Dr. Reyes did the exact same thing. There's also valves spread across the room to turn off the gas, so it's not a very good death trap either. After killing Benitez, the La Moral Zoomer army holds a party on the beach with fireworks, something which in reality would signal the regime where to target their artillery. Ubisoft added a fishing minigame, so Ubisoft made sure you play that fishing minigame. Immediately after the party, we learn that La Moral's hidden headquarters in town has been discovered and raided, so they make a new headquarters in the hotel Danny captured for them earlier, a hotel that Castillo's forces know about, since it used to be theirs, so of course it too comes under attack, and La Moral is very surprised by this. Danny has been injected with this stuff and breathed in far larger amounts, but El Tigre dies as soon as he catches a whiff of it. Since they know Castillo is using poison gas, how come no one in the Resistance ever thought they might need gas masks? El Tigre and Fortnite Girl both perish in this attack. Not just one internet download mission this time, but two.
Hello? How's it going there, Backpack?
It always amazes me when a writing team allows their villain to be so boring that he waits around in front of his webcam all day just in case a hero starts messing with one of his computers. Also, we can have a threatening Zoom call with them.
You Yankee asshole.
Well, Canadian asshole, actually. We're like Americans, except we say sorry as we sleep.
I suppose you can't have a Far Cry game without at least one white devil.
Hang tight, because I've got some real fun hombres heading your way.
Sounds fun.
What is that?
What I need to destroy everything with your name on it.
Security breach.
See you soon, McKay.
You fucking jerk off!
Did it really never occur to you that she was at a computer in the conference room of one of your buildings for a reason? You called as soon as she accessed it, so you had to know. Yet another mission where I stand around while a hacking bar fills up to destroy McKay's refinery. There's so many of these mission types that there's actually a side quest in this region that speeds up the download speed. This is Ubisoft's game design at its purest. Design something repetitive and unfun into their game, and then either make you pay or grind to lessen it.
How's it going there, Backpack? Listen, I'm running late, so...
McKay loves waiting on his Zoom calls with Danny, even when he's under direct attack and fleeing the country. How did you set a trap in this room and at the same time fail to make sure Danny couldn't escape? The door locked behind her, but there's a huge window to jump through. And alerting her to the bomb and setting it on a 5-second timer is playing fairer than an exploitative colonizer would ever be. Just detonate the bomb the second Danny entered the room.
Si,
pesos, asshole.
Well.
But we just made a deal. McKay is offering us a fuck ton of cash if we let him go. We're talking...
McKay promised Libertad a lot of money to let him go, so you get the choice of killing him. I shot him instead, since apparently you only get a few thousand pesos if you let him go, and money is basically worthless in the game. What do you know? This game made me into a communist. Carlos demanded Danny hurry to meet him under a statue of Cassandra from Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Only a despotic, fascist regime like this one could glorify a game like that.
He took her, Danny! He fucking took her!
Clara.
Castillo wanted parley. Just the two of them. Said the war was over. Libertad had won. He just wanted an elegant exit.
Strange how she trusted Danny this entire time with every important task, but when it came to a potential meeting with her adversary, she never asked for Danny's help or even brought up the subject.
You want her to live. You will accept the rank of general of my army. You will be my hope, my legend, my Danny Rojas!
As far as plans go, this is the most laughable one I've encountered in some time. The guy revealed he's dying of cancer and doesn't have much time left, and that's why he's placing his legacy on his son's shoulders. Someone who is clearly not in agreement with his father's methods. So even if he used Clara as a bargaining chip, that would end the second he died, since Danny would have no reason to keep complying. But the larger issue is that you would never be able to fully trust someone who has spent all of their time taking your operation apart piece by piece. Sniper rifles don't use laser sights. The distances involved mean it wouldn't even show up on the target, and a laser sight on a sniper rifle would possibly give away your position.
No eyes on Anton. I'm taking out the kid.
Juan.
Who are you talking to?
I'm taking the shot.
Juan, no!
Cortez gets Clara killed by deciding to kill Diego since Castillo won't walk in front of the window. How would killing his son improve the situation any? He had to know that Castillo would shoot Clara right afterward, and would also know to keep his head down. Danny grabs her gun from the floor and does nothing with it while Castillo escapes with Diego.
Clara is dead. But we have the Eagle's Nest. This is where we'll launch our attack on the capital.
You want to make things harder on yourself by launching your attack on the capital by sea from Castillo's private island? All of my effort to recruit 3 resistance groups to the cause led to what feels like cameo appearances of the key players in the assault on Esperanza, not actual needed assistance. Then again, the final mission is pathetically easy, so it's not like I needed them.
You have killed thousands. Set my city on fire. Destroyed the dream of paradise. All that stands between you and the throne is me and my son.
You can't use this logic on Far Cry main characters. Ludonarrative dissonance means nothing to them. This is a series about how a person becomes who they're meant to be by killing a whole lot of people and never allowing it to weigh on their conscience.
You will protect him. From your friends. From the monsters.
He'll be safe. I promise.
Lies.
Diego! No!
Normally, Far Cry games end by allowing the player to make a choice between an ending as unsatisfying as taking prescription drugs with a lot of side effects, or butt-chugging Drano. Far Cry 6 removes that choice and just gives you a fuck you for playing this sucker ending. In conclusion, you should have taken the early ending you were offered because it's the best one. If we keep making this joke, they'll remove that feature too, like they did with the radio towers.
The only reason we are standing here is because we didn't wait for one person to solve all our problems.
That is the very reason you're standing here. They waited for you to do everything for them.
You know, Danny, there's never gonna be an election.
There's plenty of Castillo's friends out there who want to make sure of that. You want to go hunting?
Since Far Cry games are designed to be played forever, the game is sure to remind you that nothing actually changed. Now you're playing insurgency mode, where a random province is retaken by the army occasionally.
You know, he's so sad about that Castillo kid. I mean, what his papa did. Wow, that is crazy.
Nah, a tragedy.
Well, you know, some people are just sick in the mind, hermano.
The desperation was predictable. Ubisoft couldn't make another villain as well received as Voss, so they just bring him back to life.
What the definition of insanity is.